are going to be covering a very, very important topic, which it starts with the question, can a person, by sending a group of text messages, end up be convicted of a crime where they face 20 years in prison? That's what you might find shocking, but that is what happened recently because of text messages. In prior chats that I've had with you guys, I've warned against texting people things that could get you in trouble legally. For example, a few weeks ago we talked about how you could be convicted of criminal threats if you make threats in text messages on Facebook, Instagram, etc. So this case is yet another indication of how you can get yourself in trouble through text messages even if you're nowhere near the scene of a crime. This young lady, who is Michelle Carter, was a depressed young lady, and she befriended another man about her age, Mr. Roy, in Massachusetts. And they both were depressed, and over a period of time they talked about wanting to die, wanting to commit suicide. In fact, Mr. Roy had attempted suicide on a prior occasion, and Miss Carter at first tried to counsel him against killing himself, but over time they reached a pact, an agreement, that at some point in time they would both commit suicide. Then Mr. Roy decided he was going to kill himself one day, and he got carbon monoxide, and he got into his car, and he attempted to kill himself. Miss Carter was nowhere around at that time. But during the process of attempting to kill himself, at the last minute, he got frightened. So he left the car, and he texted Miss Carter that he was scared. He wasn't sure. And Miss Carter at that time said, "Get back in the car." He got back in the car, and of course, he died. Miss Carter was prosecuted for involuntary manslaughter in the state of Massachusetts for that. Text messages. She was found guilty by a judge. She is facing 20 years in prison in the state of Massachusetts. That is how text messages can get you in trouble. But this entire topic brings up some extremely interesting questions and issues. One, for example, what is your legal obligation if you're present and someone says they're going to commit suicide? We all know that people with mental issues and people with not mental issues, we call them drama kings, drama queens, will often say things like, "I'm going to kill myself." Is it your legal obligation to call the police? Do you have to take them to a hospital? Do you have to follow them around to find out if they're really going to kill themselves? Luckily, the answer to that is no. You do not have that legal obligation. But in California, there is a law that says that it is a felony to aid or encourage or advise someone to commit suicide. That means even if the person doesn't commit suicide, you can be prosecuted for a felony for mentioning to that person that that might be an option. That has led to some very, very bad results in California courts. But you need to know it is the law in this state, and you have to follow the law, even though it reaches some very bad conclusions sometimes. Anyone who's just joining us now, I'm Paul Wallin. I welcome you back, and we're talking about how you can avoid being arrested by the use of your Twitter account by sending texts that could get you in trouble. The judge found in the case we were talking about in Massachusetts that the young lady acted in total disregard for this young man. Some people would argue that she was merely trying to accomplish with him what they had agreed to and what he wanted to do. That brings us to the moral issue of someone wanting to commit suicide. For example, under the California law, if a doctor, for example, tells a patient that he is terminal and he may die in the next 6 weeks, what obligation does the doctor have if the patient says, "Well, I'm going to kill myself"? Does he have an obligation to call the police? What if he talks to the person and later it looks like he's advising him maybe he should consider suicide. He could be prosecuted. So the law that we have in California is a very difficult one. One example I want to give is of a recent case is a couple that had been married 50 years and they were very much still in love. The husband finds out that he has pancreatic cancer. The doctor tells him that he is going to definitely die and he has a choice. He can try some chemotherapy, which will be horribly painful, etc., and he might prolong his life for a few months, but he's definitely going to die. And he says to his wife, I am not going to let you see that. I am not going to go through that pain. I just want to have it over. And the wife listens, and he asks his wife to get the medication that the doctor prescribed for pain pills. And the wife does. And the wife brings the pain pills to her husband. And that night, they spend the whole night talking about looking at photos of their family and all great trips they had taken. And then that night, the husband takes the pills and dies. Should that woman be prosecuted for aiding in a suicide? While that's the law in California, does it sound like it should be the law in California? Should a person who supports their husband in a decision to end their life when medical people have said you are going to die and suffer a horrible death? I believe hundreds of you who are watching this have some family member who has encountered a tragic medical disease that debilitates them and slowly they die. If you talk to them about suicide as one option, should you go to jail? I believe the answer should be no, but the law in California says otherwise. I really appreciated talking to you people about this today because it's not just a legal issue, it's a moral issue. As our society ages and more people are being told that because of smoking or any reason, they have a very short time to live, should they be given the option, without criminal punishment, to plan their own death? It's a hot topic issue. We'd love your comments on it because I'm sure there's answers and opinions on both sides. So have a great week. I can't wait for your comments, and we'll talk again next week.